Rep versus real. A consistent argument present in almost every corner of the internet. A war being raged between basement dwellers and also other basement dwellers over which side is right. But with cars, the question of what actually makes a rep seems to have a consistent presence and has only grown in popularity with the emergence of calling random people out on the internet over rep wheels. Because of this, I'm starting to see this one question pop up more and more. What makes a rep a rep? Well, the answer is kind of murky. If we take a look at other industries, there's a pretty clear-cut distinction between the two. Typically, a popular brand or company releases a desirable product that is either rare or expensive. A second company will come along and reproduce that product at a lower price point, occasionally with a lesser quality to it. This is where the term rep actually comes from. It's shorthand for replica. When this happens, it's pretty obvious which product is the replica. We even see this in the car industry. This is why we have replica Greddy intake manifolds, bride seats, and various aftermarket steering wheels. But if we actually take a look at the wheels, these sorts of clear-cut replicas are sort of hard to find. The best example of what I, as well as many others, would consider to be a real wheel would be the TE37. It's an original design, produced by a trusted manufacturer, with long racing heritage and a fat price point to match. In many regards, the TE37 is the wheel. In the same vein, we can look at its counterpart, the Avid AV06. It's a near exact copy of the TE, by a not-so-trusted brand with some mediocre build quality. It's pretty obvious that this is a rep wheel. Although it isn't trying to pass itself off as an actual Ray's product, it slots pretty well within our definition from other industries. Avid as a whole is actually a pretty good reference point for what most people would consider to be an open and shut case for a rep. Almost every single one of their designs is a one-to-one replica of a popular wheel. Their AV26 is an RG3, the AV20 is a Gramlite 57XR, the AV32 is a CR Kai, AV08 is a SW388. You get the point. But there's one wheel of theirs that actually piques my interest more than the rest, the AV19. It seems to be an original design. At face value, this should be a real wheel, right? Well, this wheel is actually a rep of a rep, taking its design from the Whistler KR1. So if Whistler had the original design that was then copied by Avid, would that not make the Whistler real? That's where the rep discussion sort of gets complicated. For a wheel to be a rep, it doesn't actually have to be an original design. Now, judging by the name, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I'll get to that later. For now, take the Avid A3A, one of the greatest wheels of all time. Then the Riverside R106, and the Wes Mark I. Each one of these wheels was produced in a similar time period, but one of them must have come first. So, which one is the rep? It's none of them. This brings us to our first point, legacy. Legacy is an interesting concept in this regard. Well, it seems like it was much more of an acceptable practice to largely borrow your design from another manufacturer decades ago. The sheer passage of time and value a lot of these brands have totally negates any sort of backlash they may have received. While these brands might have caught some flack back in the day, there would be no way of knowing today, since some of these wheels even outdate us. Our opinions on what is good and what is not is heavily skewed when it's being presented through rose-tinted glasses. How we see this play out in modern times is with a brand like Kansei, a relative newcomer to the scene with some admittedly pretty good designs. Most people who claim Kansei to be a rep company point towards something like their Kansei Tandem. Looking at its design, it takes some pretty big inspiration from the stock R34 wheel. But on the other side, we have the Grenade GX01. Both are trying to achieve a similar goal, of a reimagined R34 wheel. But the GX01's real wheel status could never really be brought into question. This is because it's a legendary wheel from years past. Even if the two had both similar build quality, it would be considered better than the other. This is because it takes time for a lot of these brands to build up that legacy, something Kansei has yet to do. The most important single factor in determining if a wheel is a rep or not would be the build quality. While build quality can often be disputed, it typically comes down to anecdotal evidence, seeing which brands bend and which ones blow up over time. Often finding specific information on how a lot of these individual wheels are made can be difficult or obfuscated by the brands themselves to hide some of the less than stellar manufacturing techniques. And unfortunately, I'm not exactly an expert on metallurgy. Finally, we have how they look. This is probably the most simple one. If your wheels are ugly, people are going to call it a rep to make fun of it. That's it. Why I made this video, or should I say remade, was actually because of this clip I saw a little while ago.
It's because it's so stupid.
Because you love rep
The
wheels.
internet doesn't know what rep means or what rep wheels are.
Nope.
They just throw it fucking out there. So, for example, I did a reel. I had the Heritage Kokoro in the background. It was a wheel that was signed by everybody that went to my wedding. I just set it in the background. Immediately, I get the guy,
throw that trash-ass rep wheel out of your video before your wife gets home.
and I just replied, what is this wheel a replica of? Like one of the most unique wheels that I've seen. What is this wheel a replica of? And we are, to this day, still waiting for a response.
Although making fun of people for having reps on TikTok is kind of cringe, it was handy in forcing this clip into existence. This clip is actually a great benchmark for a general misunderstanding for what a rep actually is. Okay, class in session. You made it this far into the video. You can sit through me talking about entomology for 5 seconds. Words change over time. Through this long drawn-out game of telephone, words often lose or change meaning. Take the word awful. If you break it down at its core, it basically means full of awe. But how this word is used in modern times is as a synonym for unpleasant. Two very different things. If you described this as awful, people would look at you funny. Because although that was the root word, this would still be incorrect. This is because today it no longer means full of awe. See, when a word's meaning changes over time to be entirely disconnected from its roots, we call it semantic change. Rep is a great example of this. Well, it began as a term to define copies of an original. In the car sphere, it's now found itself as a catch-all term for anything of mediocre quality or even poor brand presence. So, well, it seems like this would make sense because rep means replica. It actually sort of just discounts how words work, I guess. Now, to apply what we've learned, why would the Heritage Kokoro be a rep? Is it A, poor build quality? B, being produced by a brand with poor public image? C, because it's absolutely hideous? Or D, all of the above? If you answered D, you'd be correct. So there, Dakota, you have your answer. What actually makes a rep a rep? It basically comes down to the court of public opinion, where random people in Facebook groups and children on TikTok in the comments are the judge, jury, and executioner. Hopefully you learned something about wheels, or at the very least, something about entomology. But at the end, does this really matter? No, not really.